Hi guys, Duke DeLate here again for another episode of Pickup Daily. I'm answering a question from Seta today that says, do you physically escalate without getting IOIs? We're going to talk about physical escalation, what IOIs are and when to watch for them, and a little bit more on this episode of Pickup Daily. IOIs, what are they? It stands for Indicator of Interest. In the first mystery book, they had a whole list of stuff that you could see that a woman is interested in you. Like she restarts a conversation when you stop, she asks you your name if you haven't said it yet, she touches her hair, she does any sort of compliance. Like there's all these things that were part of the IOI stack. And with IOIs, it's like, okay, great, awesome, a woman is showing you a certain amount of stuff, and then you can react on that. I don't think they were ever meant to be constant action signals. They weren't meant to be like, oh, she does this, now you act, right? I think that escalation in any sort of type that you're talking about, logistical escalation, verbal escalation, or physical escalation, any of those things are it's supposed to be done under your intent, under your will. It's got to be your idea to move it forward. And then she's going to give you signs to say, okay, that's okay with me, I'm comfortable with that, or I'm not. Right? If you're waiting for her to give a signal of interest or an indicator of interest in order to make a move, you're probably moving too late. You're probably a couple moves behind along the physical escalation game. Because if she has to prompt you to move, then you're not actually taking leadership. And that says a whole bunch of different types of things about you when it comes to leadership and dominance and all that masculine crap that we talk about when we talk about inner game. So I say when you're going to lead a movement, just lead the movement, and then you can calibrate based on her response. If she pulls away, obviously she was unhappy or unsatisfied with that move, and then if she doesn't and she lets it happen, then you can stay in that zone for a little while, then pull back out, and then go back in and pull back out, and that whole 2 steps forward, 1 step back thing that David D used to champion. It's a great thing for all forms of escalation. If it's important to understand how she's feeling, okay? Remember the first time, or the first cardinal rule here of pickup is to make sure they feel safe, right? The second one is to entertain them, to get stimulated, right? You want to bring them high and low emotionally, right? But they have to feel safe. If they're feeling a little uneasy, they have to be able to come back out, no, but this guy's actually cool, he's not going to kill me. He's not going to rape me. He's not going to force me to do things that I'm not familiar with. The illusion of safety is one of those things that's why alcohol is so prevalent when it comes to like normal hookup culture, because women will feel much more safety. They'll let their guard down because they're intoxicated. Well, I don't advocate banging drug chicks for myself or any of my students, because not only because of the legal ramifications, but because it's just it gets in the way of intimacy for me. Like I don't have it. There's no joy for me in sexually closing in like a drunken state, especially with a new girl. Like, sometimes if you're dating somebody for a while, you go out and you have a few drinks, it's cool. But when you're kind of learning how people are moving and what their mental state's like, sex is a very vulnerable thing, or it can be. And to do that intoxicated seems to rob me of the experience, so I don't really do it. But safety is paramount. Safety is the most important thing. When you move on somebody and then they back off, or they move their hand away, or they react weird, it doesn't always mean no, go fuck yourself, right? Sometimes it means I'm not comfortable, or I'm not ready for that yet. And for you to be attuned to that and calibrated to that particular feeling of safety will give you a lot more results in closing, and you're going to screw up a lot less when you're doing your physical escalation. And secondly, it's going to create a much better trust bond, because she's able to, she knows that you're able to discern that the timing's wrong, right? But if you just sort of barrel through, it can give her a lot more remorse and make it not a very good idea, and it's going to create little roadblocks in your communication later as she kind of figures out who you are while she's making herself vulnerable. And that's kind of a high level topic that may or may not resonate with you. Either way, the point is, don't wait for her to give you an indicator of interest in order to physically escalate. But when you do escalate, make sure that you notice how comfortable or safe she's feeling around you so that you can calibrate based on that stuff. Sometimes when I'm talking hips to hip, face to face, and they start to pull back with their shoulders like this, it's a little too close, they're getting too much in their personal space, then I'll immediately move off to the side and go kind of hip to hip sideways where it's a little bit more comfortable and keep the conversation going. And as she turns back in, makes me feel safe, I come back in here like this to create and connect with that intimacy. But you never want to kind of push your agenda past her point of comfort, because even if you do end up being successful in sort of overrunning her emotions, it's going to cause weird rifts in trust and comfort a little bit later on. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be dominant, you shouldn't plow through, you shouldn't take what you want, right? Because you definitely should. But there's a subset of girls, or there's a subset of moods and attitudes where when she's putting up resistance, it's token resistance. It's actually, I don't want to seem like a slut, but I really want this, right? As you go through the game, you can begin to discern that. You can figure out when a girl is kind of token resistance and when a girl is not. I will always advocate, look, she's allowed to stop the escalation at any point. You should never take some sort of entitled view. It's like, oh, you took her out on a date, she's out with you, she's home with you, she followed you home, half her clothes are off, oh, she should want to fuck, blah, blah, blah. Nah, dude, like, at any point, if she gets uncomfortable, she should be allowed to cut the whole thing off, and you should stop being a fucking dick about it, right? Because it's just no good for anybody when somebody's unsure and then you give them a bad experience in that thing. It screws up the whole subculture and infrastructure of dating. So stop that for you and your fellow man. But on the other, also legally it's rape. But so fuck that. But it's important to plow through some resistance, but plow through with integrity, right? You don't just need to close for the sake of closing. Remember that sex and all of communication is a two-way street. It's something between two people that, if properly shared, generates connection, generates trust, generates rapport, good feelings, and all that stuff. That's my answer to waiting for IOIs, for physical escalation. I answer questions every damn day on this channel, so hang out with me tomorrow, and until then, stay awesome.
Close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leaving.